In the world of neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, there's a well-known framework by the name of Diltz logical levels, or Diltz ladder, as I originally learned it. It was originally proposed by a guy named Robert Diltz, who is well known in the NLP community. Now, full disclosure, I am not an NLP expert, nor in fact am I even an NLP trainee, but I've nonetheless always found the concept of Diltz ladder to be not only fascinating, but more importantly, incredibly valuable and useful in the world of B2B sales, and also in the world of storytelling and sharing of ideas. So at its most basic level, Diltz ladder is about how people react to or engage with ideas of change. So when I'm either asked to change or forced to change, I might see that change as either affecting me at the behavioral level, at the beliefs level, or at the identity level, or there's even a higher one at the spiritual level. So when asked to change, I may say, well, this is no big deal. I just have to change my behavior. Or, wow, this actually requires me to change what I believe. Or this change may require who I perceive myself to be. So a change in behavior, beliefs, or identity. And you can see how this plays out. So the exact same change may be perceived by different people in very different ways. The best example of this in a very practical sense over the last several years in the pandemic is, for example, mask wearing. So some people saw wearing a mask as no big deal, just a change. I wasn't wearing a mask before, I wear a mask now. I'm just changing a behavior. Others, as we know, saw putting on a mask as not just requiring them to change what they do, but in some way requiring them to change who they perceive themselves to be. I'm actually a different person now. Less of this or more of that because I am being required to wear a mask. Okay, so why is all this important? Well, it turns out in the world of sales, this plays out. In fact, I've seen this personally play out in terms of Challenger. So as I've gone over the years and gone out and presented the Challenger idea, I have found there's a radical difference in terms of how people interpret the language be a Challenger versus engage in Challenger behaviors. When I inadvertently even present the story of Challenger as you need to be a Challenger, become a Challenger, or even language like I am a Challenger or I am not a Challenger. Notice all of that is the language of identity. And when presented that way, people can become very resistant because what you're asking to do is actually a pretty high bar. You're not asking me to do something different. You're asking me to be someone different, be a Challenger. Well, what am I now? What's wrong with that? Are you telling me there's something wrong with who I am? And it feels a little bit like an attack and it puts me on the defensive. So I'm always very careful to position Challenger in terms of behaviors. This isn't about being a Challenger. It's figuring out what are these Challenger reps doing that's so different and how can we do some of that too. It's just a challenge. So I'm trying to make that change feel not bigger. I'm trying to make the change feel smaller, as it were, or lower on Diltz ladder. Now, all of this, I think, is incredibly relevant to all of us because, as I've said before in many different places, if there's one thing that's true in B2B sales, it is that we all sell the same thing. One way or another, in fact, I would argue we all sell change. Whether it's asking our customers to stop buying from the competition and start buying from us, stop buying our old technology, start buying our new technology, stop doing it yourself and outsource it to us. There's all sorts of versions of this, right? But one way or another, we are all selling change. We're asking our customers to change their behavior. Okay, well, now let's take these two ideas and put them together, and you can kind of see where this goes, right? So as we position our offerings to our customers and we talk about the new outcomes that they can achieve, the new benefits that they can garner from engaging with our solution, I think we need to be very, very careful that in the language we choose, we don't inadvertently position that change that we're selling as requiring of our customers a change in identity. We're not asking them to be something or be someone different. We're just asking them to do something or to do something different. And in doing so, I think you're going to run into significantly less resistance and significantly more openness to whatever it is you're selling. And in fact, I think one of the things that we have to be very careful of is, again, because different people can perceive the same change in different ways, a la mask wearing, we have to be careful not so much in how we position the change, nearly so much we have to be more careful in terms of how our customers are digesting that change, consuming that change. How are they perceiving it? How are they perceiving that change? Now, how are we presenting that change? And to the degree that they perceive that change as requiring something that involves their beliefs or their identity, then I think the really interesting question becomes, how can we de-escalate? How can we begin to use language, either either subtly or maybe very overtly, to de-escalate the change that is inherent in anything that we're selling and help our customers understand that change isn't nearly as big as they might have thought it would be, and the implications for them as an individual, as a professional, are not nearly as perhaps dire as they might have initially perceived it to be. So all of this wraps up, in this very interesting discussion around language and word choice and positioning, to think about how can we position the change that our solution requires very carefully such that our customers perceive it to be as low of a lift as possible and impacting less who they are and more what they do. More on this to come perhaps, but hopefully that gives you a start on how to think about selling change.